So the state of Oregon just passed one of the most comprehensive gun control laws, which includes a requirement that you must get a permit to purchase firearms and also a ban on so-called large capacity magazines. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think Oregon's new law is clearly unconstitutional, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Kershaw Knives. Kershaw manufactures close to 1 million knives in their US factory every single year and employs roughly 400 people within the US alone. Kershaw offers a broad range of knives to meet every single person's needs. From a $20 Walmart knife all the way to a $200 US made automatic knife, Kershaw has everyone's needs covered. So I highly recommend you check out Kershaw Knives. I carry one of their knives every single day. And if you go to their website right now and use Scholar20, you can get 20% off site wide. And also you can get free shipping on orders over $100. And that will last until December 1st. How's it going, everyone? My name is Anthony Miranda. I am a licensed and practicing attorney in the state of California with an emphasis on Second Amendment rights. I've been part of Second Amendment litigation both at a state level and a national level while serving as a staff attorney with the Firearms Policy Coalition legal team. My goal with these videos is not to provide you any legal advice, but to instead give you greater insight into the inner workings of Second Amendment litigation and what's currently going on in our battle and our fight for our right to keep and bear arms. As I mentioned in the intro, in this video, we're going to be discussing something that you all have been asking me a ton to cover, but I've been traveling, so I haven't been able to cover yet, and that's Oregon passing Measure 114. This measure, which passed in the state of Oregon with a 51% vote in favor of it, is one of the most comprehensive gun control bills that's passed in a long time. And for those of you asking, we're going to cover this. We're going to look at the measure. We're going to go through the various aspects of this measure and talk about what you can do to prepare and also just generally give you information on what's happening with Measure 114. So first, there are two major things that this measure does and puts in place. First, this measure will require that anyone purchasing a firearm must obtain a permit to purchase. To obtain that permit to purchase, the resident will need to complete a safety training course, go through a background check, get fingerprinted, show a valid ID, and only after all of that will you then be granted a permit to purchase. The second significant thing that Measure 114 does is it will ban the sale, purchase, transfer, possession of so-called large capacity magazines, and it will be a prospective ban after the effective date of the measure. Now, there are some nuances to all of these, so let's dig a little bit deeper into the details of Measure 114. So first, it will generally be unlawful after January 15th for you to buy, sell, or transfer any firearms without that person or the transferee having a permit to purchase and also going through a background check. To get that permit, you will need to go through a background check, have your fingerprints done, take a photo, pay a fee, present a valid government ID, and also go through a firearms safety course. The fee for the application cannot exceed $65 under the measure, so I would also fully expect that it will cost $65 because often they will charge you the maximum. The training under this measure includes training in federal and state laws relating to the ownership, purchase, transfer, use, and transportation of firearms. So that's one of the requirements that you must have for that training requirement. It also includes federal and state safe storage laws and instruction on the prevention and misuse of firearms. So that's again one of these aspects of the training that must be included. The training requirement also requires an in-person demonstration to show that you know how to handle a firearm. So that is the training you will need to go through. And if you do and you pay your fee, then you will get your certificate, which will then be submitted along with all those other requirements for your application. If you are then granted your permit to purchase, that permit will then be valid for 5 years. After the 5 years, you will then need to renew your permit, and it will cost you under this measure $50. That is the maximum they're setting for the renewal, and likely again, they will charge you the maximum, which will be $50. Now that you have that permit to purchase, you will then be required to provide that permit whenever you purchase a firearm from a store. Also, you will need to have that permit to purchase to be able to legally purchase a firearm through a private party transfer. Under Section 7(3) subsection A of this Measure 114, it states that prior to the transfer, both the transferor and the transferee must appear in person before a gun dealer with the firearm and a valid permit to purchase issued to the transferee and request that the gun dealer perform a background check. So private party transactions will need to meet those requirements that are set out in that Section 7. The only caveat to that is if you're doing a private party transfer to a qualifying individual like a spouse, a parent, a child, siblings, grandparents, then you will not have to adhere to the Section 7 requirements. Measure 114 also did something similar in regards to gun shows, and they added a restriction on private party transactions at gun shows. And they created this weird system where there's going to be a telephone number that will be established by the state. And before making any transfer at a so-called gun show or anything like that, the seller will need to call that telephone number, verify that the other person that they are selling the firearm to is able to purchase it and has a valid permit to purchase. And then over that telephone call, what I can gather is that the department that's responsible for that will then run the background check, and then that private party transaction can go through. Now, under the measure, it would be not illegal for you to own a gun without a permit, but a permit will need to be required and is required for you to go forward and purchase any new firearms. However, Measure 114 did not stop at just creating a purchase permit. It also went in and created a new law and created a law where the future sale and purchase of so-called large capacity magazines will now be illegal. Measure 114 prohibits the manufacture, importation, possession, use, purchase, sale, or otherwise transfer of magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. Measure 114 makes a violation of the law a Class A misdemeanor, which is punishable by 364 days in jail and or a fine of up to $6,250. So you can get both of those. The measure defines large capacity magazines to mean a fixed or detachable magazine, belt, drum, feed strip, helical feeding device, or similar device, including any such device joined or coupled with another in any manner, or a kit which of such parts that overall has a capacity and can be readily restored or changed or converted to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition and allows a shooter to keep firing without having to pause to reload. Measure 114 makes it a crime if a person manufactures, imports, possesses, uses, purchases, sales, or otherwise transfers a large or so-called large capacity magazine after the effective date of the measure. So under this measure, there is a prospective ban on the possession, sale, use, etc. of LCMs or claimed so-called large capacity magazines, meaning that before January 15th, you will be able to purchase magazines, keep them in your possession, but after that date, they are going to prospectively or going forward ban your ability to acquire these magazines. Also, gun stores who have magazines that are qualified under that definition of so-called LCMs will have 180 days from January 15 to sell those magazines to out-of-state gun dealers or to other persons out of state or to essentially destroy them. After those 180 days, that gun store can sell and transfer only newly manufactured magazines that will then need to be marked with a special stamp that indicates that they are magazines that qualify for sale for military and law enforcement officers and for those uses only. Another thing I want to point out in regards to Measure 114 is that it has restrictions on how those grandfather magazines can be possessed and used and also transported. One of the interesting things that I did not see in the list of permitted uses for grandfather magazines was the ability for you to carry them with your concealed carry firearm. So I have questions right now about if in Oregon under the new Measure 114, you will still be permitted to concealed carry with grandfather magazines. I might have missed the language as far as the permitted uses for those grandfathered magazines, but when I was going through those, I did not see it expressly state that you could use them with a CCW. Now, no doubt organizations like Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America will challenge this measure and will sue the state of Oregon and seek an injunction, but that could take a while. So I think it's a good idea right now to consider purchasing magazines, especially if you're in Oregon. I mean, specifically if you're in Oregon. I know there's a ton of companies right now that are going to prioritize individuals and residents in Oregon because of the sensitive aspect of this and the time sensitive aspect of this. So that's a quick rundown of Oregon Measure 114. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet and signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. Also want to ask that if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. One of my goals was to reach 400,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We're currently at 390,000 subscribers, so we're really close to that 400,000 subscribers. So if you're not currently subscribed, consider subscribing, and that would really help me reach that goal. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and never forget, this nation is built by Armed Scholars, and this nation will be maintained by Armed Scholars.